So, what if a cryptic four-line verse written almost 500 years ago actually held a warning for two of Europe's biggest nations? That's what we're diving into today. We're going to decode a pretty famous quatrain from the legendary seer Nostradamus and see what he had to say about France and Italy. So what was this big prediction? Well, let's take a look at the original text.
Here it is in its original 16th century French. Now, even if you don't speak the language, you can just feel the weight of history in these words, right? It's a puzzle, and it was written to be cryptic. It's no wonder it's had people scratching their heads for centuries. Okay, so let's translate that into plain English. Once you see it like this, you can spot the three key parts of the puzzle. First, a lineup of cosmic players up in the stars. Second, a very specific spot down here on Earth. And third, a really dramatic finale. To figure this thing out, we have to tackle it piece by piece.
So, first things first, we gotta crack the code. You have to remember, Nostradamus was an astrologer through and through. So to get what he's saying, we need to speak his language. And his language was the stars.
He kicks things off with leaders of Aries. Now in astrology, Aries is the ram. It's the very first sign of the zodiac, and it's all about leadership, taking charge, and raw power. So here's the key takeaway. Nostradamus isn't talking about everyday folks. No, he's pointing the finger directly at the people in charge, the heads of state.
But here's the thing. These leaders aren't just acting on their own. Nostradamus says they are under the influence of two absolute giants of the solar system, Jupiter and Saturn. And in astrology, these two planets represent a massive cosmic clash of total opposites.
And you can see that cosmic clash right here. In one corner, you've got Jupiter, the great benefic. Think of it as the planet of good fortune, growth, and big opportunities. But in the other corner is Saturn, the great malefic. It's the planet of limits, tough lessons, and consequences. So when you have these two incredibly powerful opposing forces pulling on world leaders, well, you get what Nostradamus calls mutations. In other words, huge destabilizing changes. It's a recipe for chaos.
Okay, so we've got these huge forces creating massive change for the people in charge. But where? Where on Earth is all this drama supposed to actually go down? This brings us to the second part of our puzzle.
And this is where the prophecy gets, well, kind of specific. He names Gaul, which, as any history buff knows, is the old name for the region that is now modern-day France. And then he just straight up says Italy. There's no room for interpretation there. He's calling out two of Europe's heavyweights by name.
You see, and that's what makes this verse so powerful. He takes this big, abstract, cosmic drama, and he pins it right on the map. This isn't some vague, something's gonna happen somewhere kind of prediction. Nope, this is focused squarely on the very heart of Europe.
All right, we've got the astrological forces, and we've got the location on Earth. So now it's time to put all the clues together and see the full picture of what Nostradamus was actually predicting.
So let's walk through this step by step. First, you have the leaders of France and Italy caught in that cosmic tug-of-war between Jupiter and Saturn. Then, this tension kicks off huge changes. The prophecy says that after a long century goes by, which is a pretty significant, but let's be honest, vague amount of time, a period of bad times comes back. And the final result of all this? France and Italy are totally consumed by emotions. And let's just hang on that last line for a second. What emotions? This is the human cost of all that planetary drama. He's not just predicting some dry political shift, he's forecasting how it will feel for millions of people. We're talking widespread turmoil, upheaval, passion, maybe even fear. It's a prediction about the very soul of these two countries.
All of this really brings up a bigger question, doesn't it? I mean, why are we almost 500 years down the road still poring over these words? What is it about this old prophecy that gives it such lasting power?
Seriously, think about that for a second. We live in an age of hard data, of science, of satellites, and yet a few mysterious lines written back in the 1500s can still make us stop and wonder, why is that?
Well, I think the answer is that it's just perfectly designed to last. It mixes the epic scale of the cosmos with very real human drama. By naming France and Italy, it feels personal, it feels real. It also taps into a fear that never goes away, our fear of chaos and massive change. And finally, that little bit of genius vagueness, that long century. Well, that ensures it can never really be proven wrong. It allows every single generation to look at it and see their own anxieties reflected right back at them.
Which really leaves us with one final thought. Is the real power of a prophecy like this one its ability to get the future right? Or is its true magic that it works like a mirror, reflecting our own deepest worries and questions about what's coming next? Something to think about.